What happens when someone walks into a courtroom, not looking for justice, but looking for someone to blame? Think about that for a second. Have you ever felt like the world is always against you? Like no matter what you do, something or someone is responsible for your problems? If you've ever thought that, this story might hit closer than you expect because today's case isn't just about traffic violations, it's about something far more dangerous, something that quietly destroys people's lives from the inside out. Blame. It was a cold, gray morning when a man named David stepped into the courtroom. 45 years old, not nervous, not apologetic, not even slightly concerned. Instead, he walked in like a man ready for battle. In his hands, a thick stack of papers, photos, maps, printed screenshots, notes scribbled in frustration. He wasn't here to admit anything. He was here to prove something. Or at least, he thought he was. David was facing 3 charges: running a red light, driving with an expired license, and failing to yield to a pedestrian. Simple case, right? Not in David's mind. In his version of reality, he wasn't careless. He wasn't irresponsible. He was a victim. From the moment he stepped up, his energy filled the room. His shoulders were tense, his jaw tight, his grip firm on the podium like he was holding on to the last piece of control he had. And then he started talking. Not calmly, not clearly, but forcefully. He pointed to photos of tree branches blocking traffic lights. He argued about poor city planning. He accused the system of being designed to trap people like him. In his mind, every mistake had an explanation, every fault had a justification, and every responsibility belonged to someone else. But sitting quietly behind the bench was a man who had seen this pattern thousands of times before. Frank Caprio. Judge Caprio didn't interrupt. He didn't argue. He didn't even react. He just watched, because he knew something David didn't. When someone talks too much, they usually reveal everything. David continued, growing more confident with every word. He believed his logic was airtight, that if he could just prove enough flaws in the system, everything would collapse in his favor. This is what psychologists call an external locus of control. It's when a person believes their life is controlled by outside forces, bad luck, unfair rules, other people. And the more David spoke, the clearer it became. He had built his entire identity around it. Nothing was ever his fault. Not the red light, not the pedestrian, not even the expired license. Especially not the expired license. But then, something shifted. After letting David finish, Judge Caprio leaned forward slightly and asked a single simple question. Not about the tree, not about the traffic light, not about the city, but about the license. Why? The judge asked calmly. Was your license expired? That was it. No complicated legal debate, no technical argument, just one question, and suddenly, everything changed. David froze. For the first time since he walked in, he didn't have an answer ready. His eyes dropped to the papers in front of him, as if maybe, just maybe, the answer was hidden somewhere between his printouts. But it wasn't, because there was no one else to blame. No tree branch had blocked his ability to renew a license. No corrupt system had stopped him from taking care of a basic responsibility. That moment of silence, it said more than everything he had said before, and everyone in the courtroom felt it. You could almost see it happening in real time, the collapse of his entire argument. Because once the blame disappears, all that's left is the truth. Judge Caprio didn't raise his voice. He didn't shame him. Instead, he shifted the conversation. He started talking about responsibility, about how every driver on the road is part of a system, not a victim of it, about how ignoring simple rules doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. He asked David to think about the pedestrian he failed to yield to. That wasn't the system. That was a real person, a human being, a neighbor. And in that moment, something clicked. David's posture changed. His shoulders dropped. His voice softened. The anger started to fade, because deep down, he knew this was never about injustice. It was about avoidance, avoiding responsibility, avoiding accountability, avoiding the uncomfortable truth that maybe, just maybe, he was wrong. Judge Caprio continued, but now his tone was different, not confrontational, not harsh, but honest. He explained something powerful. The system you're blaming is the same system that protects you. The roads you drive on, the rules that keep people safe, the laws that create order. You can't benefit from them and reject them at the same time. That contradiction hit hard, because for the first time David wasn't arguing anymore, he was listening, really listening. And that's when the transformation began, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, internally. You see, real change doesn't happen when someone forces you to admit you're wrong. It happens when you realize it yourself. David looked down at his stack of papers. All the evidence he thought would save him now looked meaningless, because none of it addressed the real issue, his choices. Judge Caprio understood something most people don't. Punishment doesn't always create change, but awareness does. So instead of simply issuing fines and moving on, he did something unexpected, something powerful. He showed mercy. He told David that the fines for the traffic violations would be suspended. Just like that. Gone. But there was a condition. Not money, not paperwork. A commitment. A commitment to reflect, to take responsibility, to decide what kind of person he wanted to be moving forward. And in that moment, you could see it on David's face. Shock, relief, and then something deeper. Accountability. Because when someone punishes you, it's easy to get angry, but when someone shows you mercy, while holding you to a higher standard, you have nowhere to hide. Judge Caprio didn't let him off completely. The expired license still had to be fixed, immediately, because responsibility isn't optional. It's the foundation of everything. He made it clear, you can't expect the benefits of society if you refuse to meet its basic expectations. And that lesson, that's bigger than any courtroom. Because the truth is, we all do this sometimes. We blame our situation, our past, other people, the system, luck. But at the end of the day, there's one thing we always control: our choices. David walked into that courtroom angry, defensive, and convinced he was right, but he walked out different. Not defeated, not humiliated, but changed. His steps were slower, more grounded. His grip on those papers had loosened, because he didn't need them anymore. He didn't need excuses. For the first time in a long time, he had clarity. Judge Caprio gave him something far more valuable than a legal victory. He gave him a second chance and a challenge to become someone who doesn't wait for the world to be perfect, but chooses to be responsible anyway. Because here's the truth most people avoid. You can't fix the world if you can't fix your habits. You can't demand fairness while ignoring your responsibilities. And you can't grow if you're always blaming. As David left the courtroom, something subtle but powerful had shifted. He wasn't walking like a victim anymore. He was walking like someone who finally understood responsibility isn't a burden. It's power, real power, because the moment you stop blaming is the moment you take control of your life, and that is a verdict that can change everything.